In criminal law, defenses are crucial legal strategies that defendants use to challenge the prosecution's case. By disputing facts, negating essential elements of the alleged crime, or providing justification or excuses for their actions, defendants can seek acquittal, reduced charges, or lesser sentences. The effectiveness and applicability of these defenses depend on the specific circumstances of each case and the governing laws of the jurisdiction. One common defense is the alibi, where the defendant asserts they were elsewhere at the time the crime occurred, making it impossible for them to be the perpetrator. This claim is often supported by evidence such as witness statements, surveillance footage, or receipts. Another frequently used defense is self-defense, in which the defendant acknowledges the act but argues it was necessary to protect themselves or others from imminent harm, provided the force used was reasonable and proportionate to the threat faced. The insanity defense involves the claim that the defendant was legally insane at the time of the offense, lacking the capacity to understand the nature or wrongfulness of their actions. This defense typically requires expert psychiatric testimony and, if successful, may result in commitment to a mental health facility rather than imprisonment. Similarly, the defense of duress arises when the defendant committed the crime under threat of immediate harm to themselves or others, although this defense is generally not available for serious offenses like murder. Entrapment is another defense, where the defendant contends that law enforcement induced them to commit a crime they would not have otherwise committed, focusing on whether the intent to commit the crime originated with the authorities rather than the defendant. The mistake of fact defense involves a genuine and reasonable misunderstanding about a fact that negates an essential element of the crime, such as mistakenly believing property belonged to the defendant. Consent can also serve as a defense, particularly in cases involving alleged assault or theft, by arguing that the victim willingly agreed to the act, thereby negating criminal liability. The necessity defense applies when the defendant claims they committed the crime to prevent a greater harm, for example, breaking into a cabin to avoid freezing to death, where the harm avoided outweighs the harm caused by the offense. In addition, lack of intent, or mens rea, is often raised, as many crimes require proof of a specific mental state. Defendants may argue they did not possess the required intent, knowledge, or recklessness. Finally, procedural defenses focus on violations of the defendant's rights during investigation or trial, such as illegal searches, failure to provide Miranda warnings, or prosecutorial misconduct. When successful, these defenses can lead to the suppression of evidence or dismissal of charges. Each of these defenses is governed by specific legal standards and evidentiary requirements. Defense attorneys must thoroughly assess the facts of the case to determine which defenses are viable and most likely to succeed.